Good morning, everybody. Thanks for your patience as we were trying to iron out all the technical details. So we appreciate you hanging in there. My name is Emily, and I'm on the education team here at the Aquarium of the Pacific. And welcome to another edition of Aquarium Online Academy. I'm joined today by James, who's at the computer, so he's switching everything that's behind me. And we've got Allie. Miss Allie is over at the questions station. And so if you have questions, feel free to text us in here at 562-286-1838. We'd love to hear from you. Just a reminder that texting rates do apply, but you're welcome to text us 562-286-1838. If you're watching this not live on YouTube, on demand on YouTube, you can email us your questions. We love to hear from you. Our email address is live, L-I-V-E, at lbaop.org. All right, let's get started. Once again, thanks for your patience. We have so many things to look at today. So I would love for you to take a moment and have a look at this view of our exhibit in Trop. We call this exhibit Big Trop because it's the biggest window we have to our biggest exhibit. And you might notice there's lots of animals that live here. And today we're going to be talking about fish. Now, this is a great place to start looking at fish. All right, so take a look here. I'm going to step aside for a moment, and I have a question for you. So all you scientists out there, can you tell me, what are some things that make a fish a fish? So we see a lot of fish inside of this exhibit, but what makes a fish a fish? Woo! That was a close one right there. What are some parts of the fish that make a fish really distinctive? Like, what makes a fish different than maybe like a seal or an otter or an octopus? There's some things that make fish pretty special, pretty distinctive, different from other animals. So have a look right here. See if you can brainstorm a list of maybe 1, 2, or 3 things that make a fish a fish. Now I'll tell you right now, we have a great view right behind where I'm standing, right over there, of one of our largest fish here at the aquarium. That is the Queensland grouper. So take a look there. So there's lots and lots of fish that live here. All right, feel free to text us if you have any comments about what makes a fish a fish. And in the meantime, I'm going to go over to my drawing board, and we're going to start kind of building a fish based on what we notice about what makes a fish a fish. Now, first things first, and we're going to be drawing sort of a really general, a basic fish, and just understand that fish look really, really different from one another, and you can see that right here. But there's something on the outside of fish that make them really distinctive or special, and that's what they use to swim. Okay, so we'll start there. Something that makes a fish special, something that makes a fish is what they use to swim. What are the fish in this view using to swim? Any observations? Yeah. Did you notice that some fish use their tail fin and they wag it back and forth? They sort of move it back and forth, and that's what they use to swim? Take a look at that. Now, do all fish use their tails to swim? Oop, there's some that don't. Pretty interesting. Ooh, there was one right there that didn't. What did it use to swim? Let's see if we see another one that might be swimming like that. There's a couple of them, all these tangs right here, surgeonfish. They sort of use the side fins. Oh, now we have a comment from our friends Ollie and Lincoln, who said that fish have fins. And in fact, they listed a number. They said 5 fins. So let's start with the fins. Let's go over to the drawing board. Now, if you happen to have some scrap paper or markers and crayons at home, feel free to draw along. And I'm going to be showing you the things that make a fish a fish. I'm going to start with a really general shape. So we are going to be drawing a football shape. Now, not all fish have this body shape, and we can talk about some of the ones that are a little bit different. Oops, I made a mistake. Let me fix that. But I'm going to start with a football. It kind of looks like a lemon, a football, an eyeball right here. And I'm going to start adding some fins to this fish. Now, one of the, a bunch of the fish that we were looking at have tails that they use to swim. And so I'm going to draw a fish tail here. Now, maybe, James, if we can switch back, maybe we can get an idea of the types of shapes that the tails are, because it turns out lots of fish have different types of tails. So take a look at the fish behind me. This is an angelfish. What do you notice about the angelfish tail? And I'll step out of the way so you can get a better look. Huh. It kind of looks, to me, like a fan, right? So it has this sort of, almost like someone took like a piece of pizza and cut off the bottom, right? So it has like a fan look to it. Yeah, that's great. That's a really flat tail. Those are the types of tails that kind of moderate swimmers use. So they may not swim real fast, and they may not use that tail all the time to swim. They may use their tail in combination with other fins. But that's a pretty interesting tail. Let's see if we can find a different shaped tail too, just so we know some different options. Oh, another fan-shaped tail, but this one looks a little bit different. To me, this one looks more triangular, right? It looks, instead of that sort of rounded edge, it has that flat edge. And this is a butterfly fish. This is a copper-banded butterfly fish. Oh, interesting. Miss M's class wants to just put in some observations too. They know that fish have fins and they breathe underwater. So we'll get back to one of those ideas, but we're looking at the fins right now. So great observation. All these fins help fish in lots of different ways. Derek and Ritter also mentioned that fish are all different shapes and sizes. We've already seen that. I mean, this fish looks different than my cartoon fish already because the shape is really different. And the shape and the fins kind of say a lot about the way that the fish moves. So butterfly fish have a really special shape, and it helps them slide through different little bits of the coral reef. They're really, really skinny. They're flat from side to side, and so they're able to get into coral. Great observations there. So let's take a look back at my drawing board here, and we see that we have a fish body. Now, I just drew a football shape, but if you want to draw a shape that's more like the fish that we just looked at, the butterfly fish or the angelfish, they have sort of a slightly squarer, more square-looking body. But it turns out we're going to just draw a tail that we noticed, and I put a question mark there, but I'm going to go ahead and add a flat tail to the end here of this fish. Kind of like we saw with the angelfish, but there's a lot of fish that have this really flat tail. Some other tails might look triangular like we saw, and there's still other tails that look like this, that look kind of like a V or a fat V or a boomerang. So I'll fix this one so you can see everything in view here. So lots of fish have different types of tails. So these are some of your tail options for those of you drawing along at home. Now that's not the only fin that a fish has, and I'm going to add some lines just to illustrate that. We know that fish have other fins as well. Now, one of the fins that I noticed were the fins on the side too, and there were some fish that were even swimming with those fins. So I'm going to go ahead and add a triangle on the side, and we know that there's another one just like it on the other side as well. So we have that fin. Did you notice any other fins on our fish? Maybe we'll go back and look at another fish. There's some other fins that are a part of those fish. Let's take a look. Ooh, what a beautiful tropical fish here. Now, we just added the side fin. That's called the pectoral fin. They're the ones on the sides. We have the tail fin. Oh, what do you notice about this tail fin? What's the shape? It looks a little different than the one we drew, right? To me, it almost looks like the letter C. Or I can turn it this way, right? So you can see there, it looks kind of like a letter C. So it's not flat on the end. It's like a little bit curved on the end. Another tail option. We also notice that there's some fins on the top. Do you see that fin there on the top? All along there, there's a fin. Do you notice any fins on the bottom? Let me step out of the way. Oh, I notice that there's actually a few fins on the bottom. There's one that's sort of like half of a long fin, kind of matching the one on the top, but it only goes like for half the fish. And then there are these little fins right here, and there's actually two of them right there. So this is the pectoral fin. These are pelvic fins. This is an anal fin, and this is a dorsal fin, and then this is the tail fin or caudal fin. So it's 5 different types of fins, which is what our friends Ollie and Lincoln said. Great comment. So we'll go ahead and add that to our cartoon fish right here. We noticed that there was a fin on the top. There was a long fin on the top, and this is the dorsal fin. So if you want to draw along at home, I sort of make it match the top outline of my fish. And remember, there's like a matching one on the bottom, but it doesn't go the whole length of the fish. It kind of goes like half length of the fish. So we're going to go ahead and add that right here. And then there were these 2 little ones like this, and they were sort of matched. So I'll go ahead and label these just so that you can see. We have, and I'm going to go ahead and erase my different tail options, but you know that we can have different types of tails. This is a tail fin, so I'll label it right here. This is a tail fin. This top one is a dorsal, so that starts with the letter D. Dorsal means top. This is an anal fin. These are pelvic fins. And then this one right here, I'm just drawing dotted line, is a pectoral fin. And there's 2 of them, and there's 2 pelvic fins, so I'll just put the number 2 there. So those are part of the things that make a fish a fish. All right. So we have a really basic fish shape. We did notice, though, that different fish have different body shapes. We have some general fish fins here, and different fins help the fish to move, just depending on its lifestyle. So some fish that are sort of average swimmers may move their tail a little bit. They may move their pectoral fins a little bit. Some of the fish that are very strong swimmers will have a different shaped tail, and they may use their tail a whole lot, like a big motor on the back of their body in order to help them swim. So take a look at this image. The sharks are one of the fastest swimmers in here if you watch them, and they move their tail back and forth. If you notice some of the fish that are more like cruising slowly through here, you'll notice that they use a combination of maybe their tail, sometimes just the side fins. So there's lots of different ways that these fish move depending on their lifestyle. All right. Now, one of the other things, I think Miss M's class mentioned this, is that something they noticed and knew about fish was that fish breathe underwater. And that's true. And so that's another thing that makes a fish really distinctive and really special is the way that they breathe. Now, we breathe air, right? Everybody take a deep breath. We're let it out. When you do that, you take air in through your mouth and your nose, and it goes down into your lungs, right? And that's why sometimes your chest can get really puffy if you're holding your breath. So that is how we breathe. But fish breathe really differently. So take a look at some of these fish here. Now they've got something on the side of their bodies that tells you, that covers actually where they breathe. So fish take water in and they push it out their gills. So instead of lungs, like what we have, they have gills. And we know that they have gills. We can see the gills on the outside because it looks like a little door on the side of their face. If you look at some of these fish, you'll see that they have like a little flap and it opens up. This is actually the point where I do my fish face impression. Feel free to follow along if you want to. I understand if you don't want to, though. It's kind of fun. Fish breathe by putting water in their mouth, and then they push it out their gills. So this is why fish look like this. That's them breathing. That's actually what they do to breathe. They're pushing the water in their mouth and out their gills. So let's add that to our picture over here. All right, so we happen to have our fish cartoon. I'm going to give it a little bit of a mouth. Now, fish mouths look different from one another. Maybe we'll investigate that in a minute. But fish mouths kind of look, they have different shapes. But the water goes in their mouth and out their gills. And they happen to have what looks like a big door that covers those gills. Now, here's the water coming in. Actually, let me see if I have a different color. Oh, perfect. Okay. I'm going to use this instead because it's blue instead of orange. So water goes in their mouth and it goes out their gills. And then this little door covering is called an operculum. That is the word that we as scientists use for a cover. It means cover. So operculum is the gill covering. So water goes in their mouth, out their gills, just like that fish, sort of like that fishy face. And the other thing I was going to add, since I'm over here, is the eye. So if you're drawing along at home, feel free to add that. That's definitely something that makes a fish a fish. Now, I did mention that different fish have different mouths. Let's just take a look at maybe some of the like oddball ones. James, do we have a picture of like a frogfish or something that has a really strong upturned mouth? Take a look at this mouth. Yeah, your mouth actually says a lot about what you eat when you're a fish. And so this fish, wait, it kind of looks different than what we were talking about. What do you notice about this fish? Yeah, it's kind of bumpy. Its fins look a little bit different. Look how thick these fins are. It almost looks like it's sitting, right? Like or standing on those little fins. Because this is a frogfish, which is, they're really good at like waiting, sitting and waiting around. And so they have this lifestyle where they are just staying really, really still. And so they blend in. They have this like bumpy texture. They've evolved this bumpy texture to like kind of look like the rocks and things around them. Now, they have a really highly upturned mouth. And I think about it almost like, you know, in the cartoons and stuff where they have like a drawbridge and the gate comes all the way down. That's what this mouth is like. It's like a big old drawbridge. It's waiting for food to come down sort of from above, drift down from above, and then they open it and snap it shut. And they can actually suck food in that way. So they actually have a very efficient mouth because they're ambush predators. They just hang out and wait. So there are some fish with really, really extreme frowny faces, and that's what they do. They just wait for food to come fall from above, and then they snap it open like that. Now, there's other fish that have their mouth kind of more on the end of their mouth, almost like if you were to just draw a straight line across there. And a lot of fish actually do that because they eat the food that's directly in front of them. They're not waiting for it to come from above. They eat directly in front of them. So let's take a look right here. So this is a pufferfish, a really different body shape, right? Still has all the same fins, but instead of that football shape, it's more of a boxy shaped fish. But we can see its mouth is right there on the end. Now, the puffers are actually kind of cool because they have really special teeth in their mouths, but their mouth is on the end. So they just collect their food by eating what's right in front of them. These guys actually have fused teeth inside of their mouths. Sometimes they look like they're smiling at you almost. And they use those to chomp on things directly in front of them. So they'll pluck at the food that's in front of them. Which I think is kind of neat. As I mentioned, the way that the fish's different adaptations, things on their body, say a lot about the way that they live, their lifestyle. Maybe, James, if we can look at one more picture of another fish, maybe a parrotfish, something like that. We can take a look at another mouth. It's kind of unusual. This is a parrotfish. Notice that mouth directly in front of them. So they're also pluckers. They happen to also have some really hard teeth inside of their mouth that are almost beak-like. And so they're able to crunch on corals and other bits that are directly in front of them. Now, the cartoon fish that I drew kind of has a more generic looking mouth, but these are very specialized mouths. So you can see right here, look, it looks like it's smiling. Those teeth are there to help crunch the food directly in front of them. So they'll sometimes even prey on corals and things like that. So they have all the tools that they need to catch the food that they want to eat. So let's go back quickly and look at my cartoon fish. So we just drew sort of a generic mouth. If you wanted, you could draw a really frowny mouth. You could also draw a mouth with special teeth if you wanted like the parrotfish, here's my parrotfish mouth. It looks like big, big old lips, but those are actually their hard teeth. All right. So those are some different options right there. Now, those are some things that make a fish a fish. All right. So we've talked about their fins. We've talked about their sort of body shape, their mouths. They do have bones on the inside. That's definitely something that makes the bony fish distinctive. Now, we got a great question here from Emily, who shares a name with me, but we actually spell it differently. Emily wants to know, how do fish protect themselves from predators? Well, it depends on the type of fish, but that's a great question. If we go back to our pufferfish friend, they have a really specific way of protecting themselves right here. Can you imagine what it might be based on what you see? Do you notice these spines right here? The spines are currently laying down, but one way that the pufferfish protects itself is it blows itself up, either with air or water. It makes itself into like a balloon with spikes on it, and that makes it really difficult to eat. So that's one way that this animal protects itself. But there are other ways that others may protect themselves as well. Some of them are really good at camouflaging, or they're really good at darting away. And yet others will swim with their friends in a big old school, and that's another way that they protect themselves. Safety in numbers. So they'll school together, like sardines and things like that, will form big groups of fish, and that's one way to protect themselves from predators. Well, I want to thank you all for joining us today. We're just about out of time. We appreciate you hanging in there for our technical difficulties, and we can't wait to see you on another edition of Aquarium Online Academy. For those of you who are teachers that are out there viewing, if you can take a moment to text us at 562-286-1838. Teachers, let us know how many students you have viewing. That really helps us to understand how we can better serve our audiences. So if you can go ahead and take a moment, text us in, let us know how many students you got viewing today. And we look forward to seeing all of you on another episode of Aquarium Online Academy. Bye, everybody.